Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
Hi everybody, today we have Alex Timlin. He's the Senior Vice President Verticals at Emarsys. Hi Alex, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. UK hasn't been in a very great state, well, nor has India, so we're all, I'm guessing, in the same bad boat right now. So Emarsys works on e-commerce strategies with many of the UK's biggest brands, and they have 2,500 odd clients across more than 100 countries. They have also been recently acquired by SAP due to the outstanding work that they've been doing in their field. So Alex, the first thing I want to know from you is, would you be able to tell us a little more about the work that Emarsys does?
Yeah, with pleasure. I think we're very fortunate to be rated by Forrester as one of the leading technology solutions for cross-channel campaign management and by people like Gartner for personalization. But effectively what Emarsys do is help customers capture data from their end customers, so email addresses, mobile phone, telephone numbers, mobile device IDs, and then start building relationships with those people via website marketing, mobile app marketing, email marketing, and digital advertising, just to make sure that we're helping predominantly retailers, travel clients, and a number of other types of brands communicate with those customers, engage with them through these digital channels, and make sure that that experience is really personalized and really relevant using the technology platform that we provide.
Great. So does this also extend to B2B customers, or is it just a B2C kind of a tool?
We do have a small number of B2B customers, but our focus is very much on the B2C. I think the problems that we're best solving for is for clients that have a lot of products or a lot of customers, how they leverage automation and AI to communicate with those people with the right message to the right customer on the right channel. Those are the problems that we're best placed to solve for. I think in the B2B space, there are different opportunities and different problems for people to solve for that other technology platforms are better placed to address.
Okay, great. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was that we are a couple of months into 2021. Do you think brands have got been able to get back on their feet? And how long do you think it would take them for them to surpass their previous revenue records before we went into lockdown and before essentially business took a nosedive? How long do you think the recovery period is going to be?
I think it's a really good question, a really important question. I think on the one side, we've got clients that are more digitally native. So if you look in the UK at a brand like Gymshark or Pretty Little Thing from the Boohoo Group, they're online only businesses. And those online only businesses are growing incredibly. So in the UK, Germany, Australia, the US, all of our clients that are mainly making their revenue from online are in growth, and they're seeing like absolute rocket ship growth. I think my favorite quote is from the CEO of a company in the UK called AO.com, Appliances Online. They just sell large consumer electronics, large consumer appliances and white goods. So washing machines, freezers, tumble dryers, that's what they sell. And they've seen 5 years worth of e-commerce growth happen in the first 5 weeks of lockdown in the UK. Businesses like that are doing amazingly well. For other clients like the Frasers Group, where it's a 5 billion euro retailer, where more than 90% of their revenue comes from their physical stores, the online growth they're seeing hasn't offset the huge importance of the offline retail growth. And that's very true of the UK and US economies as a whole. 46% growth in commerce in the UK is great for e-commerce, but there's actually overall a 1.9% decline in 2020. And that's because offline retail is still hugely important. What we are seeing this year is people embracing things like click and collect and order online and buy in store. And in Germany, there's a government mandated retail program called Click and Meet, where you need to book an appointment to visit a store. This has meant that offline retail has become a little bit more digital. Offline retailers now understand who's visiting their stores better than they could in previous years. And the retailers that are doing well right now are the ones that are really well prepared from a digital perspective to understand how to let people use their mobile device or their computers to book an appointment or buy online and collect in store. They're really those guys that are embracing this all-important omnichannel concept. The people who are really offline retail, don't have a connection with their customers, don't have digital tools, they're in a difficult spot because they don't have a technology platform or a foundation to help them kind of open back up and connect with these customers and the speed that they need. So anyone who is digitally savvy is doing really well, or at least has a foundation to do well. People who hadn't prioritized digital, and there are really some huge brands that fall into that camp, those guys are struggling a little bit, and it's probably going to take them a few years before they get back to normal. So a long answer, but I hope I covered enough bases there.
No, you're absolutely right. We've been speaking to people as well, and this is the kind of reaction we've got too, that, the past few months have crunched digital transformation for about a decade in probably half a year or maybe a 6 months period, because you really need to have a digital presence to have any kind of business today. So that's completely good. Now, but during this time, which form of technological shift was the most challenging for brands? Because I know going digital was a big deal, like you just said. Which other technology adoption did you think posed a challenge? They were not probably prepared to move in that direction, but they've been forced to go on if they were to survive or grow at all. So which technologies would you put in that bracket?
I think one of the things that Apple and Google did last year, which was a bit of a curveball, was around removing the cookie laws and cookie consent policy. So basically, the vast majority of digital marketing and digital advertising is based around the concept of a cookie. Like, you visit a website, they track you, and then they use that to optimize what you see and how they spend on advertising dollars. That entire landscape was turned on its head last year, and then all of a sudden, Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, all of the big technology players had a difference of opinion around how to approach cookies. And it really caught brands unprepared. And I think there were a huge amount of businesses that didn't know how to get the customer's consent to actually track and monitor them. And there's a lot of people still, and we've done a lot of work in India over the years, and you'll hear a lot of people talking about my email file or my email list. It's like, I've got 10 million people on my SMS list, on my email list. Same in the UK. That's not really true. What you've got is 10 million people's private customer data. You have the ability to use that as long as they let you. And I think last year, we saw a huge explosion in digital demand. There were more people online than ever before, but how businesses were able to capture and use that data changed about halfway through the year. And it still kind of caught a lot of people by surprise. And when they start spending a little bit more on their Facebook ads and Google ads, I think they're going to find it less performant than it was last year, just because they've been making a lot of money from organic traffic. As things open back up and the traffic kind of evens out and the ad landscape gets a little bit more competitive, I think this whole how do I use customers' data with their permission is a really big topic. And I don't think that a lot of brands or businesses or retailers have a very good point of view on how they're going to get, use, keep, and manage customer data. And I think that's the next big battleground for 2021.
Right. But clearly, it's been almost a year since the lockdown happened. Has the customer behavior evolved over these last 12 months again? Do you see them moving back to offline or brick and mortar stores kind of consumption at any time soon? Or do you think digital is here to stay as a primary form of interaction between businesses and their customers?
I think it's a great question, but I'd say the lines are blurred. So what we did see, so in the UK specifically, when retail stores opened back up in September, the whole industry went from decline to growth. So it's like consumers wanted to shop in stores. The government legally mandated they weren't allowed to do that. So what we shouldn't forget is consumers didn't have this dramatic shift to online because they wanted to. A lot of it was because they had to. And the moment stores reopened, people were queuing in the streets to go and shop in physical stores. So like online retail isn't going to replace offline retail, but what we did see last year was a more than 50% increase in consumers using a mobile app for discovery and purchase, and a huge increase in the number of people browsing in store, but not finding the right size or the right color and buying on a mobile device. So you're seeing now the lines between online and offline blurring, with people, as I say, booking appointments to visit stores on a mobile device, buying online and collecting in store because they don't want to wait for a week for delivery. And there's other people that want to look at 2 or 3 things and just buy one. Those types of experiences can be digitally enabled, but can't be digitally replaced. And I think the behaviors we're expecting to stick, and we've done some research on this with the likes of McKinsey. We don't expect this to go away. We expect these blurred lines to kind of stay the same, but online retail as a percentage of overall retail sales, I don't think is going to top more than 30 or 40% in the UK in the next kind of 3 to 4 years at the very least, which means more money is still going to change hands in physical stores than online. But a lot of that offline activity will be as a result of digital engagement, primarily through a mobile device.
So what I'm hearing from you is, Alex, that organizations will probably have to be better at their omnichannel delivery to make sure that the customers are serviced equally offline as they are online. Is that right?
Yeah, but even just the online, the understanding, I think there's still too many businesses that treat their mobile app or their web presence as a competitor to their stores rather than as something that's complementary to their stores. And I think from a leadership level, we need to make sure that the KPIs we have in our business to measure the success of our business are a little bit more omni-channel. So it's not just having the delivery there. It's about having an understanding that you can't force customers to use one channel or the other. Customers move a little bit more fluidly across them. Try and just have a look at what your customers are doing and understand how to make that happen more effectively rather than forcing online or offline. Look at how to make the use of this kind of new blurred line and blurred landscape to measure things in a more omni-channel way.
Correct. And they'd be able to collect more and better and smarter customer data if they were to be able to service as well as deliver omni-channel. Isn't that right?
Exactly right. I think in the UK, we've just signed an agreement with a large bakery chain, Greggs the Bakers. It's a billion euros in revenue, and they've got 1,000 stores, but they sell baked goods. It's sandwiches, it's bakes, it's pasties, it's sausage rolls, it's British staples. And they're now making sure that you can only go into most of their stores if you've already ordered and already paid. The store is where you collect the order. You actually buy on their mobile app. And if a bakery chain's doing it, then it's the sign of the way the world is going, where it's less of online, offline. It's more how does one complement the other and vice versa.
Correct. So that's a seamless experience for customers, whether they are online or offline.
Exactly right.
Right. So technological bias is a term that's causing a lot of arguments and discussions worldwide. Do you think it's going to impact customer behavior and demands at any point of time?
I think yes and no. So I think that there's a few different points to it. I think a lot of AI measurement and analytics kind of is self-serving. It helps measure what it wants to measure and optimizes to what it wants to optimize. But I think whether you have access to technology and the types of technology you have access to is very different across particularly generations. So in terms of technology bias, I think the most interesting thing that happened in 2020 was 46% of the people that we measured across more than a billion consumer interactions were people making their very first purchase from that brand. So 46% of sales in 2020 happened from people who were making their first ever online sale with that brand. And for a lot of those people, some further research found that it was their first ever online purchase. And I think the barriers in terms of technology have changed. There are biases in terms of optimization and analytics, but there's also bias in people's access to technology. So who has really reliable high speed and what size the screen is and whether it's whether you have the access to digital payments and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different elements to that question. But I think, yes, there are technology biases, but even across generations, what we have seen is a little bit more of a level playing field where because of people not having any other choice but to do this and because of all of the investments that have been made in infrastructure in the UK, Germany, US and elsewhere, there's a lot more people that are digitally enabled and digitally savvy on a consumer's perspective and a lot more brands that are a bit more savvy on a technology perspective as well, where I'm hopeful just because of the sheer volume of people doing things that the biases level out overall, but it is an important element that we need to address and make sure that we look into, both on the brand side, how they're measuring things and how they're serving things and how they're doing pricings and offers, but also on the consumer side of things, who has access to what technology so that we don't just all jump onto the TikTok and Snapchat bandwagon to target millennials, but we remember what it's like for other generations as well to make sure that things like font size, screen access, payment options are available to make sure that everyone has access to digital services, not just one sector of the population.
Right. Now, I'll ask you a very generic question, Alex, and this is out of curiosity from my own self. Now that the vaccine has rolled around, most of the countries would probably start working on the recovery mode for their population. By the end of the year, if it's a little better globally, do you think markets how should I put this? Do you think markets would be able to reach back in 2090 levels or work on whatever was forecasted to them at that point in time, or do we have a permanent scarring because of this last year? How do you see this, panning out over the next couple of years at least?
I think it's a difficult question because everyone lives in their own bubble. I think I'm very fortunate to have a role in a career path where I can do what I need to do from home, and I can speak to amazing people like you digitally, and it doesn't really affect my life too much, in all honesty. And I'm not saying that from any other place other than saying I know that there are other people that aren't as fortunate and have had their lives dramatically impacted. And for those people, I think they are going to have some horrific scars. There's a huge amount of people who weren't able to work, weren't able to earn an income, weren't able to go about business as usual. And there's another group of people that actually were already kind of working remotely, already working in internet-based technologies, and already kind of in Zoom calls and everything else with it. I think there's two different parts to what's happened in this crisis. And I think if you put those two things together, there's 100% going to take years before we get back to the kind of growth that we saw pre-2020 and late 2019 in some sectors. But I think, will we come out different? Yes. Will it be better? Don't know. But will it be memorable? Oh dear God, yes. I think there's going to be a lot of people who remember 2020. But I think what their future holds will be very, very different, just because of the sectors they work in and how they've been impacted personally as well as professionally.
Right. But as people and as consumers, if we look at it from the consumer's perspective, the way people shop, the way people buy things has changed. So do you think it coming back to, how it used to be in 2019, or how businesses were expecting it to grow over the next 1 or 2 years had the pandemic not happened? That kind of recovery.
I think the places that had invested in making sure that they had good experiences in the kind of physical world. So whether it's a bar, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a retail location for fashion, clothing, whatever else it's going to be. If it's a place that people want to spend time, people will go there and spend time. But I think people will be less likely to put up with bad experiences because of being exposed to the experience of and convenience of getting everything they need in their pocket. So I think these 46% of people who've made their first ever online interaction, whether it's a purchase for groceries, for delivering food online, or for ordering clothing, they've now done that. They know what it's like. They've probably done it more than once now. They're going to see that convenience and contrast that with the experience of what happens in a store. So people won't go because they have to. People will go because they want to. And I think the people who remember that and embrace that will do well. The people who are looking to cut costs and kind of maintain margin need to recognize that they need to make investments in some of these store locations and retail locations and restaurant locations to make people want to spend time there. Otherwise, they're going to find the competition is no longer just the people on the street corner. It's the people who are taking up the space on a mobile phone in someone's pocket.
Yes, and that was a very insightful answer. This is exactly what I was thinking too. So I'm so happy to hear it from you as well, Alex. And I think we've come to the end of our questions. I have to really thank you for the time you've invested here with talking to us today, Alex. Thank you so much for today. And I hope you also enjoy talking to me as much as I did talking to you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. And it's a great show, and very much looking forward to the next episode.
That's great.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.